Hey there, this is Jenner Carnelian again with my special Halloween episode of Drawing Jenner's World. It's a special episode because it's my second in, well, a couple of days since I put out the 5-part first episode. And I don't think I'm going to be able to put out that many on a daily basis. I'm thinking I'll be doing an episode a week, approximately. What we're doing here is a drawing of Kimberly Freeman from One-Eyed Doll. I've been drawing One-Eyed Doll art, fan art mostly, since 2007, since the first time I saw them play on 6th Street. And I bought the CD that night. Their first album, Whole. Took it home and drew a quick ink sketch of the show I saw that night. And interestingly enough, like a month later, it turned out that her drummer at the time, number 3, was living in my building, and I didn't even know it. And they were in the process of moving out when my neighbor from across the hall ran into them. And he had talked to number 3 several times, not even knowing who they were. And he came up and told me, "Hey, do you know these people?" And I was like, "Holy crap, I know exactly who they are." And it's like, well, I had to get in bed because I was getting ready to go to an anime con the next morning. So I went and got that drawing I'd done not too long before that, and gave it to my neighbor and said, "Hey man, next time you see them, just hand this to them and give it to them. I gotta go to bed." And I went to bed, but then 10 minutes later, my neighbor's knocking on my door telling me to get up. And I open it, and there's Kimberly and number 3, all sweaty and from moving. That's when we really introduced ourselves. I mean, we talked on MySpace a couple of times. But we hadn't really gotten to know who each other really were. And that's how I met Kimberly, and I gave her that art, and that began a friendship and a good professional relationship from there. She asked me to illustrate the Break album for her years later, because I just kept drawing art for her, and I kept putting more and more time into the art I was drawing for her. Now, on this picture here, you can see I instead of using the micron, which is how I started on my last episode with that comic art board. I started out with micron, with the exception of the lettering. On the character art here, I just went directly using a nib and India ink. Partly just because it was my mood. That's what I felt like doing at the time. But using a nib it lends itself well for organic illustrations, especially a gothic variety like what I'm doing here. And the design I'm using was inspired by the new video they just put out, Committed, which it was an awesome video. It was brilliant. And in that video, she portrayed herself in a new look. I don't know if that came from something that was in her head or was the director's idea. I mean, I suspect it was from her head because the story that the video was based on, she told me before in interviews that I've done with her. That character that I saw in there, the Kim Reaper, is, I like to call it. Initially I was calling it Death Kim, but I figured Kim Reaper was a little more clever. I knew I had to draw that character, and that's what I'm doing here. I'm giving her an epic supervillain pose. along with her scythe and the freaky Medusa hair that she had in that video, and the dark eyes, which you'll see. Only in the video, she was wearing a skeleton costume type shirt, which she wears a lot on stage, you know, or something similar. But in this illustration, I'm like making the rib cage literal, which is also kind of harkening back to what she had me do for the break cover. You know, she wanted the ribs to be showing in that artwork. You know, with the flaming insides. You know, with her the manifestation of her magic symbol. The way I'm interpreting this character, this way I'm reading into it, she's kind of like the dark Kimberly, the evil Kimberly, which, you know, is pretty plainly portrayed, you know, because they did show a more virginal, I guess, is a more pure looking Kimberly in that video to contrast with the darker character with her hands on the skulls and things like that. Another reason I was inspired to draw this, you know, like within like today or yesterday, was because Saturday night they had a show and I was not able to get there. I was going to try to get there. Junior, you know, he had Facebooked me a couple of times notifying me of the show, and I told him I was planning on making it, but I was not able to get there. Before I even knew about the show, I had other plans made, and I was going to try and make both of them, but it just ended up not happening. And I regret not being there. You know, I felt bad for not being there. You see there, I almost extended that scythe past the edge of the page, and I'm gonna end up having to like redraw part of it in the computer. When you see at the end of this video, I'll have a digitized version, you know, and when I've added some digital color to it all. So this is gonna be like a full-on piece. I haven't figured out how to record what I do on my computer. Frankly, I don't think the computer I use for digital illustration could handle recording the video while I was painting digitally, because it's like a 10-year-old computer. You know, the style I'm doing here with Kim is not what I usually do, or what I've done with her in the past. You know, I usually try to capture more of her innocence, because it's always been a part of her character on stage and in person, you know, even though she's definitely an adult and, you know, has her stuff together, but she always maintains like there's an air of purity about her all the time. And I've always tried to capture that in what I'm drawing, you know. At the very most, in terms of getting away from her seeming childlike innocence, you know, there'll be some, I might put in some mischievousness with my illustrations of her. But with this one, I've gone and made her a little more womanly. You know, give her more of a domineering, villainous kind of vibe, I guess. See, I mean, I was specifically referencing those her shoes with the video. I mean, I was looking at a still video on my laptop from the, you know, a still from the committed video, to make sure I was getting her costume relatively accurate. The nice thing about using the nibs is that it gives you a real good fluid line, a more organic line. Now, it's not to say that using a nib is always superior to using a micron. It really is up to your personal preference, you know, what kind of look you're trying to achieve. I mean, right there I'm using a brush, and the reason why, I mean, a lot of times I use brush to do exactly what I'm doing there. It's just to fill in a lot of black. But when I put in her one-eyed doll symbol down there on the floor under the character, I specifically wanted a brush because that's the look that I wanted the lines to have, to make them consistent with how that symbol normally appears, you know, on one-eyed doll stuff. Now, for a long time, I mean, probably since as long as I've known Kim, I've been talking to her about wanting to do a comic. I've already like incorporated her into my own graphic novel series. She has a cameo appearance in my second graphic novel, and she will have a cameo in the third one that I'm working on now. But I've been wanting to do a specific one-eyed doll comic book, for which, you know, as I mentioned earlier, I interviewed her for, to get some idea of her background and to get some story ideas. And watching the video kind of helped give me, recently just gave me more energy as to what direction I'm going to go. I mean, lately I've been having trouble because it's like I don't know when I'm going to have time to get to it because I'm really busy on my own stuff. And I mean, part of the plan was to incorporate a one-eyed doll story within the realm of my own graphic novel world, you know, my supernatural cyberpunk world that I've already been working on and developing. And, you know, I've already kind of laid some groundwork for with her cameo in the second book. Now there I brought in the micron just to touch up on some of the little details and stuff, partly because I just got tired of using the nib pen. And sometimes, you know, while I can use the nib pen for even finer work than what the micron allows, after a while my hand starts to get too tired and I'm just not able to do it. So I just use the micron because it's just a little bit easier at that time. I mean, what's easier for me is whatever I've been using the least of, you know, because each pen has its own shape and requires your hand to move in a certain way. I was thinking about making this video a little bit slower instead of going at 4 times speed like I did the last video, but as I watched it at only double speed, it was too slow for me to tolerate. I was getting really bored myself, and I figured it would just be better to try and get this thing knocked out like within like 15-16 minute video instead of having you go through a 2-part 30-minute video. And there, like I'm adding some background details, as you can see. That little tombstone, I just like, without even penciling at all, I just took my micron and drew it in right then and there. It's not too big of a deal. I mean, I can draw with pen alone. Like when it comes to easy things that I'm really familiar with, no problem. You know, tombstone is a real simple shape. You can just make it up as I go along. It's different when I've got like a character that has a specific look. And I'm just about finished here with this piece. You're gonna see what it looks like finalized in a second. This is really harkens back to stuff that I used to draw in high school. Like I used to draw Marilyn Manson a lot in high school, and this is kind of the approach I took a lot of times. There it is. That's the final black and white version after it's been scanned in and cleaned up. And you're going to see color version here. Final, beautiful version. You can see all the blue scratchy lines and stuff. Originally I was trying to mimic the like a old film grain look. It kind of looks like it, but at the same time it ended up kind of looking like electricity, which is cool. So I ended up just drawing it coming out of her hand, you know, because her right hand kind of needed something to do. It's a lot different than the artwork you see in Adventure Quest Worlds, which is cool artwork. I admire it, and I'm actually thinking about doing, doing some pieces, you know, for video, like in a future episode, just drawing some Adventure Quest World characters, you know, in that style, just to demonstrate that I don't necessarily have one style. I can like mimic other people's styles if I need to, or feel like it, and. I really do like the poppiness and the epicness that AQW has with their artwork, especially with what they do with Kimberly. Talk about trying to make a comic book with Kim. Been talking about it with her, and I'm sure by now she's like, okay, sure, whatever, whenever, but. Eventually I'm going to have a solid script down, and I'm going to bring it to her and try and get her blessing at it, because I'd like to make it like an official One Eye Doll comic if she's down for it. Get that put together, and I mean how soon I'm able to get it done? Well, it depends. I mean, how many One Eye Doll fans are watching this video right now? You know, if you're a One Eye Doll fan and you'd like to see my version of One Eye Doll in comic book form, like a 36-page comic book, you know, comment here and let me know, you know. Maybe we'll release it via Kickstarter, maybe some other means, I don't know. We'll figure it out. I'm still thinking about how I'm going to do it. But this is the end of the video, so thank you for watching.